This is Baxter Colburn, host of the Verse of the Day podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
Everyone, welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. This is Emily, and I'm here today with Lindsay and Lindsay, aka Suzzie, and we're here to talk nerdy to you. So we have a guest today, Lindsay, who is actually our host, Lindsay's best friend. So we're going to call her Suzzie from this point on.
Simplicity, yeah.
And our episode today is about Sailor Moon, and since I know nothing about Sailor Moon other than that when I was 5, I watched it like really early in the morning, and I used to pretend to transform into Sailor Moon on our neighbor's swing set. Lindsay and Suzzie are going to educate us all on the series, but I can just briefly give a little rundown of what it was and when it started and stuff. So it was actually called Bishoujo Senshi Sailor Moon, and it's a manga and anime series featuring a team of Japanese schoolgirls who transform into magical guardians fighting to save the world from various existential threats. The manga by Naoko Takeuchi. Ooh, I did that pretty well, didn't I? And an anime adaptation was produced to run alongside it from 1992 to 1997. There were 17 volumes of the manga. I'm not sure which way to say that. Manga, I don't know. Magma. And there are 200 episodes of the anime across 5 seasons, plus 3 theatrical films and several TV specials, becoming an international sensation and helping to popularize anime within the general Western audience. From 2003 to 2004, a Japanese action series called Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon was roughly based on the manga, ran for 49
Very roughly.
Very roughly. All right,
yes.
I'll believe you. And then it went quiet for a while until they did a special for the 20th anniversary of the actual show, I would assume, not the
franchise.
Yeah, because it's not that it hasn't been 20 years since that live action started. No. In 2012, it was announced that they'd be doing a new anime called Sailor Moon Crystal. 2 years later, the series finally debuted in July of 2014, and so far, faithfully has been covering the first 3 of 5 total story arcs in the manga. Unfortunately, apparently the last episode was in July of 2016, teasing the start of the next story arc, Dream, and it did not actually come out yet. They still have been kind of pushing it off. That's what I've gathered from our notes. So
they've not only pushed it off, but they've announced that it will not be an actual TV series. It will be 2 feature-length films. So we're all pretty disappointed. It sounds like they're going to have to cut out a lot of content to make it happen.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we know why they're doing that? Is it budget or not enough interest, or?
It's hard to say. It seemed like they upped the budget for the last season, and it's, the fans were all pretty happy with the last season, and I guess maybe it just wasn't doing well enough to make up for what they put into it, or they thought maybe they could milk more money by, getting fans out to theaters a couple times and taking all their money.
That would be nice if it's a full feature film, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Anyways, let's find out about you two, though. How did you get into Sailor Moon to begin with?
All right. Well, my first experience with Sailor Moon was through a little crescent moon-shaped magic wand ice cream novelty. It came in this package with this colorful character that I'd never seen before with crazy bright blonde hair and these weird pigtails. And she vaguely reminded me of Rainbow Bright, so I thought she was pretty cool. I was intrigued and it was delicious, but that was the last I'd heard about her for a while until the summer of 1997 when Lindsay and I were over at a good friend's house and we saw some kind of Sailor Moon merchandise in her room. I can't remember what it was. And I was like, hey, that's the girl from my popsicle. Who is she? And our friend Liz was like, that's Sailor Moon, duh. And we were probably like, wow, Liz, you're half Japanese, so you have access to such exciting culture. And she's like, you guys are idiots. It's on Cartoon Network every day. How do you not know about this? So she showed us a VHS tape of a random episode of the horribly dubbed Sailor Moon R, and we were hooked and started watching religiously.
And then it really just kind of spiraled out of control after that.
Good time.
There's a period of time where KB Toys was selling little figurines, and I'm pretty sure you could get those at Camelot Music and Music for Less. We were like every weekend. Yeah,
we were getting all this clearance Sailor Moon toys. I am holding one right now. It is a transformation brooch.
Still
works. Is that a noise? It makes that noise.
Oh,
wow.
I still have a box that came in, and it is marked down $1.99 from $12.99.
Wow.
That is how we afforded our obsession. It was very cheap.
Wow. I was going to say, that would have been pretty expensive then, too, if it was $12.99. Oh, my goodness.
No, we bought things on a budget. It was great.
Yeah. And
good stuff.
Geez, we started to download all of the episodes, too. Back when we had to dial up into the internet. And
yes, it would take me hours to download one episode, but I had to get the subtitled Japanese versions to get all of the story that we were missing that hadn't come out in English.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and we did talk a little bit about that. So let's talk a little bit about what we grew up with then as kids, what we remember from the show as we were growing up, and then let's talk a little bit about the show that's actually the good, Crystal. Meaty Crystal stuff,
Yeah. So growing up, Sailor Moon, it struck a couple chords with me on a really superficial note. I love the fact that she was a magical girl because I grew up obsessed with the show Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie, and so that was really cool that she had magic powers. She also had an adorable talking cat, and I was and still am obsessed with cats. But it wasn't just that she was a girl with magic powers. I loved that they were girls that had magic powers that they used to save the world fighting monsters. Like, that was everything to me. Emily talked about playing Sailor Moon on the swing set when she was 5, but when I was I'm a few years older than she was, and when I was 5, I was playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with all my little boyfriends on our swing set. And that was lots of fun, but I was always stuck being April and just getting rescued. Or worse, if we had 2 girls playing, we'd get to fight over who had the luxury of being April and getting kidnapped and rescued.
Boy.
So that was fun. And then when I got a little older, when I was like 7, I got into Nintendo. So I was Mario fighting to save Princess Peach, or I was Link fighting to rescue Princess Zelda. And I never got to fight the bad guys as a lady. And it was really disheartening. I felt so out of place. And, growing up in the 90s, I felt empowered as a woman that I could be a lawyer or a doctor or a scientist when I grew up. But my inner child just wanted to be told that I could be a superhero. And I feel like more than any other franchise, Sailor Moon was what really sold that to me. It's such a stretch to say that the show with these little teen girls prancing around and the most scandalous miniskirts was a big wig for
right.
feminism.
And everybody talks about that, the skirts and the little schoolgirl things. I know that there's an origin from Naoko from when she went to school, but I also never noticed. It just wasn't something that really crossed my mind when we were watching it. When we were I see it now and I'm like, oh no, these dresses are scandalous. And even I'm going to talk a little bit about the Americanization of the show and how the transformation sequences were kind of blurred out and changed a little bit so that they didn't they weren't as risque as they were in the Japanese edition. But it wasn't something that really...
It wasn't graphic. Yeah,
no,
it was
wasn't
totally
something that I really thought of. And, we see a lot of anime now, too, and it's very on point with the rest of the anime that I'm used to seeing. So I didn't feel like it was something that I really pinpointed when I was younger. And even now I feel like we are so much more used to that coming through on our televisions that I don't even think it's something that really needs to be talked about or so much as glossed over as it was back then.
Yeah, but in the lens of the time, like the diversity of like sexual preferences and gender expressions was really cool to me.
Even if you just Google Sailor Moon right now, one of the first questions that comes up says, is Sailor Uranus male or female? Yeah. That kind of thing is really what that, as opposed to the Americanization of it, and the way that it was portrayed in Japanese is almost kind of discrediting the art that it was to begin with.
Yeah, it took a lot of the value out of it, at least for me.
So let's also talk about a few of the different things that they changed for the American version. You remember Sailor Moon Says?
Oh my goodness. Yes, it was ridiculous.
And it always didn't make any sense, and it was the silliest thing. But at the very end of the Deke dub, they would have this Sailor Moon segment for Sailor Moon Says, and they'd take little clips from the episode, and it would be
they'd preach a lesson. They would try to teach you
educational.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
this thing where she would try to tell us about something that happened in the episode. So it was sort of like an educational programming that gave them time to sort of lecture against questionable behavior from the characters that you just saw. So, obviously you don't want to drain other people's energy. You don't want to be...
That was a pretty blatant marketing ploy to try and sell this as educational for kids and palatable to network executives who are looking to get this, in syndication for Sunday morning cartoons alongside Schoolhouse Rocks and stuff. It's not educational, it's entertaining.
Yeah, and then we already talked about how the Americanization covered up a lot of the LGBTQ plot points with Queen Beryl's four generals as all being straight men, and maybe had a little bit more connotation in the Japanese version.
Yeah, in the manga they were straight men, but for the anime they decided to go in a different direction and have Zoisite and Kunzite be lovers. And, I think that was kind of to add drama to fill time. But, they made it very over the top. That Zoisite was very effeminate. At one point he cross-dresses as Sailor Moon as part of like an evil plan. And they decided rather than trying to dress that, they would just make Zoisite a lady and pretend that she's this really flat-chested lady. And that was very weird, I think. I think we might have picked up on some of the uncomfortable, awkward vibes of this, growing up being spoon-fed that. And then later, when Cloverway took over and did the last two seasons that they dubbed, they left a lot of stuff, a lot of the Japanese in and everything, but they decided to make Haruka and Michiru cousins instead of lovers. The original show was not super in your face about their relationship. They weren't kissing or anything. They weren't touchy-feely. But to make them cousins added such a just creepy vibe to it. It's ugh. So many jokes went totally wrong.
All right. And then they also had a bunch of episodes that they completely cut that just had weird, strange concepts going on. I feel like there was almost sort of a disconnect between how accepting or odd or strange plot points and things could be in Japanese as opposed to in the United States. It's the things that they really cut out were sort of stuff that we would have been okay with, but not if you think about it in a very extreme way.
Yeah, and that's what I think. I think they were kind of paranoid in the things that they cut. So they cut an episode where there was a tarot card reader that was the bad guy, and they cut one where they went to an actual haunted house. And I think that they were trying to like stay away from anything that could get the show labeled with like black magic, because there's still elements of like the satanic panic of the 1980s where everyone was afraid that Dungeons and Dragons were corrupting the youth and making us worship Satan and everything. So they tried to like soften that aspect. And I think the worst cut that they made was that they cut out an entire episode where they went into Minako, Sailor Venus's past as Sailor V. And it was a little weird because she had a crush on this older man, and she was friends with this lady that was his age.
Okay.
That like they had a love triangle, and they thought that Sailor V died in a grenade attack, and it was a little more adult than all the rest of the tone of the series, but it gave Minako all this backstory and depth to her character that she was kind of superficial without it.
Yeah, so as an adult, I can appreciate that, and I can see what they were doing with it, and even Sailor V's backstory would have been really cool to know more about, because she just sort of was this pop character that was Sailor V beforehand, but with a different colored skirt and all this other stuff. But there is an element there that I would appreciate as an adult, but as a child, I would have been like, I would have appreciated my parents.
I loved it.
Right.
When I watched it, after I watched everything through the dub and I watched the subtitles, when I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we missed all this.
And then we already talked about them covering up the nudity. When a lot of the transformation sequences happen, the semi-transparent silhouettes are kind of on colorful backgrounds, and in the Japanese, there's a little bit more curve lines.
Yeah, they would have like a little line under the bust just to like kind of show where the breasts were, and that was too risque. They had to just wipe those out. If a character was in a bathtub, they would raise the water line and make the water go from mostly or opaque to like completely opaque. So
I do remember that.
In milk.
And of course, they downplayed the violence. So they cut out a lot of the graphically violent scenes. They edited out blood as much as possible. You said there was one time when I almost think I remember where monsters would bleed different colors.
I didn't mean a monster.
Stuff.
That's fine. But this was a human character.
Oh my goodness!
He got impaled and he leaked green, and I never noticed it. I didn't even believe it. I had to go back and watch the Dick episode, but he gets impaled by like a plant type thing, and all around it leaks green all over his chest.
That was
I'm
the
like,
plant.
Yeah, he's not bleeding out from that thing burst through his entire chest. No, and it never struck out at me. They also covered up a lot of death in the last the series finale of the first season, and they just cut everything into 2 episodes. They made people not die; they went away to the Negaverse,
right?
and they totally took away the parts where people were seriously grieving, and it took all the gravitas out of that whole thing. And watching it in Japanese finally, it was almost traumatic watching it for the first time, because I had such a censored version.
So I think I've been watching a lot of The Crystal lately. I wanted to sort of remember what I loved about it and what I didn't love. And having an 11-year-old daughter who has watched at least the feature film subtitled movies that I have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely still have those. I think they're on a CD now, but when Lindsay and I were going shopping, we'd save up $20 so I could buy the VHS. Not dating myself or anything here.
No.
But I'm kind of surprised that I'm enjoying Crystal as much as I do. It's the background music even is really cool. There's a lot of almost operatic music, and even though the Japanese lyrics still don't really make any sense, there's guitar riffing and the sped up sound for the transformation sequences and the intros and the outros. That music is all really
it's very epic and dramatic.
Yeah, it's very visually and audibly appealing. I really appreciate
they toned down some of the cheese of at least the original Japanese version. I have a hard time remembering the special music that they did for the first season of the English dub, original English dub.
Well, and it's funny too, even because there's that part of one of the songs where they say "never running from a real fight," and people joke that Sailor Moon always runs from a real fight.
Always runs. Her first instinct is always to run.
But she gets a lot better at the end of the first season.
I think the exact line was "never running from a real fight," and I guess you can say that when things got real, she did hunker down and see things through.
Right. Basically, what I really appreciated about Crystal was the fact that like the friendships were growing through time too. There's a lot of character development, even in just the first season, where you see this development of Usagi really getting to know everyone outside of being the Sailor Scouts as well, and I think there's a lot to be said about them growing throughout each story arc as well.
It's kind of sped up, in Crystal versus the original anime because they're never stalling for time. They're completely following the manga episode by episode. But I think you also miss out on some of those filler moments where they did have even more friendship building, and our perception might be colored by, having watched them go through all that previously.
So, Lindsay, didn't you have a couple? We do know that Sailor Moon right now isn't doing anything, so you can definitely find out where to watch it.
Yes,
they are in limbo. But there were a few things that you wanted to talk about that are current right now that we could watch.
Yeah, so you've got plenty of time to catch up on Sailor Moon, but if you're already caught up, I do have a couple recommendations for series that you might be interested in. The first is Puella Magica. It's a mouthful. Most people just call it Madoka. It's a magical girl anime for older fans that takes a much darker, more serious, more psychologically scarring look at what life might be like for adorable little girls as they fight much scarier monsters and an equally beautiful but much more unsettling, colorful landscape. It's very popular with people that aren't necessarily fans of the magical girl genre, and I would highly recommend that if you're thinking that Sailor Moon's maybe a little too kiddish for you to get into in this day and age. The other one is Claymore. It's a manga and anime series set in a medieval era, like Fantasyland, plagued by monsters that also feed on humans a little more literally. If you like the idea of lots of fierce ladies with magical powers fighting monsters, but the magical girl genre is too cutesy for you, this series has women with giant swords doing much more serious battles and lots of drama and mystery as well. The only thing I would caution you is that the anime only covers the first arc of the manga, and then they didn't get picked up for 2 more seasons, so they kind of had to wrap things off. And for me as a fan, it left a feeling of like unfinishedness. I don't know. It's not super satisfying. And then the only other thing I had to plug was while I was researching, I found this game that's out right now called Sailor Moon Drops. It's basically Candy Crush, but for Sailor Moon. So it's a free game on Android and iOS. You can download it and waste lots of your time swapping around little gems. And what the best part is that if you have leftover moves, Luna comes and uses them to like rip up the board and throw pieces everywhere, and it's great.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of games then, that wraps up the portion for Sailor Moon. And since it's the last episode of the month, we are bringing you our What's New in Nerd News segment. Yay! And June was a pretty great month for nerdy news because we had E3 that took place right about the middle of June. And some of the best things we got out of that was Microsoft and Bethesda, some of the most well-received showcases. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft was announcing Halo Infinite, Cyberpunk 2077, and Devil May Cry 5. And Bethesda was showcasing things like something that already leaked thanks to Walmart Canada, I believe.
Yeah.
Rage 2. Thanks,
Super
Walmart
cool,
Canada.
super cool.
Appreciate that. But also an in-depth look at their new multiplayer game, Fallout 76, that they teased the week before E3 by just being a complete troll on Twitch and opening up their Twitch stream for a full 24 hours with nothing. Just the little Fallout guy sitting there with a waiting screen. I watched it and I'm like, what's gonna happen? Come on, what's going on? And nothing happened. It was real frustrating. So thanks for that, Bethesda. But then also an announcement officially of upcoming Elder Scrolls 6, which is gonna be really cool. Like, we don't know exactly where it's going to be yet, but we do know that it is coming. Elizabeth is not on this episode, but she is hoping for a new Elder Scrolls game by 2020. So we're hoping for that. Yeah. Also, some other things from E3, I believe. Telltale Games will also take on Stranger Things. They have famously brought out well-done games involving Game of Thrones and Batman, so they will also be adding Stranger Things to their mix of games that they do. So we've got some movies coming out and other media. So Incredibles 2 came out last week Friday, and my husband Paul and I are taking our daughter, who's 4, to see it on Saturday. We're super excited about that because we've been waiting like 14 years.
That makes me feel so old.
I know, right?
I remember being too old to watch that in theaters when it came out.
Oh, yeah? Well, see, the thing is, my husband, and I didn't realize that it came out, like, before my husband and I knew each other.
Yeah.
And now that he is a dad, getting to watch, like, Mr. Incredible be a dad, like, this is going to be a different perspective kind of thing. So we love it. It's going to be super good. And then today, June 22nd, Friday, the day that this episode is airing, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom comes out. So that's going to be cool. But I've never seen any Jurassic movies, so sorry. Don't take away my nerd card, please. I'm hoping it'll be cool. I mean, Chris Pratt's a good guy, and
I mean, the last one was beautiful. Like, the dinosaurs are so cute, and the whole world that they've come up with is very beautiful.
That's good. Well, and so we've been watching a Twitch streamer play the Jurassic World game lately, and my daughter, oh my goodness, my daughter, it's kind of like Sim City for Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like Roller Coaster Tycoon or Zoo Tycoon, but like
but my daughter just loves watching it because she's like, "Can we watch her stream it again?" I'm like, "What do you?" You're just watching her like put little buildings there, and then sometimes there's a dinosaur.
On YouTube, be happy with your battles.
Yeah, it's too funny. My daughter is already obsessed with Twitch, and I don't know what to do about it.
It's not a problem.
I guess we'll just have to roll with it. I mean, my husband streams, so, and I'm thinking of streaming eventually too. So we'll see how things go. Anywho, moving on to some more movies. This is looking to the future now. Coming up in July, we've got a couple of nerdy movies coming out. Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out July 6th. So that's what, like 3 weeks away, something like that.
Awesome.
We talked about the trailer before with Bryce Burge. So if you want to know our thoughts about that, go ahead and check out that previous episode, which we put out a couple months ago. And then we also have Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Well, that's
I
cute.
know, right? That's a bit cheesy, but it's coming out July 27th, based on, I believe, the Cartoon Network show. And I believe it's going to be an in-theaters release. That's the way it seemed to me when I was looking it up. But I don't know. It might just be coming out on Cartoon Network as a TV only. We'll see. If anybody knows, let us know. But just figured I'd throw that in there because it's the way the synopsis sounds. It sounds like Robin wants to try and be a real-time hero so that they can have their own movie. So because they're trying to pitch themselves to producers in the movie so that they can have a movie. That's what it sounds like it's going to be about. So that should be pretty entertaining. Yeah. Also, it's been released that Spider-Man Into the Verse is set to release December 14th, 2018. So I don't know if you've heard about this movie, but it's a Spider-Man movie where it's an alternate universe. And there's multiple Spider-Men or Spider-Mans. I don't know how you would plural.
Spider-Man.
How would you make that
I think
plural? I don't know. Spider-Men? Spider-Man? Spiders-Men. Spiders-Men.
I don't know if I can really handle more than one.
Because, how would you keep track of who's who? I don't know. I know, right? I mean, one is good enough for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. But also, we have an official title for Wonder Woman 2. It's going to be titled Wonder Woman 1984, and Chris Pine is going to be making an appearance as Steve Trevor, which I'm interested to see. I wonder if it'll be in a flashback or what, because the original movie was set way back in the 40s? I want to say something like that, like World War II. So if Chris Pine is making an appearance, there has to be some kind of time travel or flashback or something. But the movie will be coming out December 19th, 2019. So we have a year and a half to wait for that one, but it should be great. So now we know. That's all we've got for nerd news this month, but tune in next month. The last episode of July will also have a What's New in Nerd News segment again. So we'll keep the theme and we'll keep carrying on.
So I want to say thank you to Lindsay Lindsay Suzzie for getting nerdy with us today. She is my best friend, and I'm so excited that she came on.
Thanks for having me.
And I just want to let you guys know that you can always talk nerdy to us. Sailor Moon fans, what are your thoughts? Let us know about things that you would have liked to have us talk about. Gamers, what are you most excited about that you learned about from E3? Find Beauties and Headcanons on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr to share your nerdy topic suggestions with us. Subscribe to this podcast and others from Public House Media on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and wherever good podcasts are found. We love feedback. So if you liked this episode, or even if you didn't, please give us a rating and a review so we can keep making great episodes for you. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Emily.
And I'm Suzzie. And thanks for getting nerdy with us on Beauties and Headcanons.